Hi guys, welcome to episode 10 of Japa
Look at
Diaries, a
that.
podcast documenting the experiences of African immigrants in the diaspora.
Yes, and on this week's episode, we spoke to a gentleman who recently just moved back to Nigeria, his headspace, his thoughts about his experience here and at home, and what he envisions for his future.
Yeah, do not forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at japa.diaries. Enjoy.
Bye.
Hello everyone, welcome
Hello.
welcome to another episode of Japa Diaries, a podcast documenting the experiences of African immigrants in the diaspora. Today we have another special guest. I think all our guests are special, personally, in my opinion. And we have a really cool story today, but I'm gonna have him introduce himself. Do you want to go ahead?
Okay, so my name is Funto.
Hi,
Hi,
Funto.
Funto.
Yeah, I don't know what else. 1 of +2 3 4, and that's pretty much it. It's a
Okay.
graduate.
Awesome. Cool. So, I chose to have Funto on this episode because I met him while we were out on the streets of Austin, and it came up that you were moving back home.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to, like, I know people who stay and I know people who move back home, but I kind of wanted to figure out, like, what was the thought process leading up to that, how it's been so far, and, what your plans are going forward. But before we do that, let's start with, like, your Japa story. Like, how did it come up that you were going to move to the US?
To the U.S. I first moved to the U.S. in 2012. My mom
Okay.
moved. She worked in Chevron, so she moved. She moved to Houston, so I moved with her,
hmm
and I lived in Houston for 3 years till
Was
2015.
that like high school,
High
middle
school,
school?
college.
That was seventh, eighth, and ninth grade.
Oh, wow.
So
So, like, middle school.
yeah, so originally I was supposed to go to eighth grade, but I failed the English exam multiple times, and so they just told me to stay in seventh grade. So I did,
Seventh grade.
yeah, so I did seventh grade, in a majority white school. So that's kind of how it started, and
What was that like?
Um, it was complicated. I was the
Yeah.
first black. We have black people in our school, but usually it's black people in mainly white schools are usually, we know the type of black people you usually meet.
A
Right?
little whitewashed, yeah.
Yeah. So I was the first African 99% of them ever met. So that led to a lot of I would say it wasn't direct racism. Some of them were funny. Some of the racism was funny. Like I'm not. I'm a big.
He's like, some of them is like, yeah, I can give it to you. That
No,
was funny.
No,
I'm
I mean,
honest.
racism can be humorous as
Yeah,
well,
I'm a big fan of funny
It doesn't mean it's
racism.
not racism.
Yeah, and I'm a big like if you're gonna be racist, at least be funny while you're doing it. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Like
Let me get a laugh. Let me get
yeah,
a
like
laugh.
don't
Let me kiki,
the
yeah.
whole go back to Africa. It's like come on, like you can do better than that. So
Cliche, step up
yeah,
your game. I
like
know what you mean.
yeah, like come on, heard that all my life. I remember when someone told me I look like Burns Pancake. I found that one funny because they were like, because I'm dark skinned on this side and the
It's
other
new.
side. Yeah, I was like,
It's new. It's new.
that's so, I bit his
You
ass
know?
though. I bit his ass, but I was like,
You catch an elbow for
yeah,
that.
I was like, that's a good one. Never heard that one before. So yeah, it
Yeah.
was like it was interesting. I ended up getting kicked out of school though, but I ended up getting kicked out of school in ninth grade. But that's a whole different story.
Okay.
So
So after ninth grade, you go to another high school.
no, I moved back to Nigeria.
Oh,
So
okay.
you came back to
Yes,
Nigeria.
I came. So by
Okay.
Was that on a oh, you were expelled, I'm sending you back to Nigeria type of thing? Or like your parents were
Yeah.
like, maybe America is not working out for you.
okay, so what happened was 2015. My mom moved back to Nigeria. So I was living in America with a white family. They were the pastors of my school, right?
Mm.
And as Nigerians, if you grew up in Nigeria, you're not used to freedom, So
Yeah.
hmm
I had freedom. They bought me a car. They gave me a lot of money.
You are moving mad.
Ah,
I
voila.
was,
You are
ooh, I
moving
was
mad.
like, I was wilding out. Like some of the things I did, I cannot say on this podcast, but it's like, what is going on? Like now that I look back at it, I'm like, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did it at that age. I was
Yeah, go tell your system early.
yeah, so I was
Yeah.
older than everyone in my grade. I was the first one to get a car in my grade. So I was moving with the seniors. So that's kind of how it was.
Okay.
So when I got kicked out of school, it was kind of like I got kicked out of school the second to last day of my semester, which was so stupid. They could have just let me go.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
but it was already in that situation where like my parents were considering me going back to Nigeria or going to boarding school. So when I got kicked out, I was kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, we're bringing back to Nigeria because clearly you can't handle America right now. So
Yeah. So after
Mm-hmm.
they sent you back to Nigeria for being a bad boy in the US, you are one of those people that came to our school that we know that they sent back because they were
yes, yes,
misbehaving.
Yeah.
yes.
So what was that now like being in boarding school in Nigeria?
So when I came back to Nigeria, I didn't go to boarding school. I went to AISL
Okay,
because I went
so
to boarding school before I moved to America, and
oh,
so
okay.
I went to American International School of Lagos, and
Mm.
it was a back and forth because this was the first time in a while that like me, my mom, and no, I said me, my mom, my dad, and my mom were like together for like a long period of time in the same house. So it
Mm.
was a situation where my dad, my mom knew me, but my dad who didn't, if that makes
Mm.
sense. Like my mom understood my behavior because we have lived together,
Mm-hmm.
but my dad
Yeah,
didn't
but your dad not so
because like
much.
when I was
Okay.
in
Mm.
Houston, I didn't. My dad wasn't still in Nigeria. Like when I moved back after getting kicked out, my parents didn't like punish me. But what happened was they lost trust in me.
So
I'm
let's
glad I
let's
went to
fast
the school
forward. Let's try
that
and
I
fast
went
forward
to.
to
Coming back.
um yes, to college. So like, your parents have lost trust in you. Like, what was their mood like? What was your mood like when it was time to go to university?
It was so when it was time to go to uni, I had to sit down with myself where I was like, first of all, before it was time to go to uni, I felt like my parents felt like I wasn't going to get accepted to any school because I was failing, like I was failing school because I was one of those people where I'm like, I'm smarter than this, so I don't need to study. Like I don't
Mm.
Mm.
my grade doesn't mean determine how smart I am. Like I will go into an exam without studying and still get a B, and I was content with it. And I was content going to an exam not studying and failing because I was like I didn't study, so I can't be mad about it. So that's kind of how I
Mm.
was
Okay.
moving until the final year of my school year. And I was like, okay, let me actually study, and I started doing good. So when it was time to go to college and application and applying, my parents were I could tell that they were a bit nervous. I could tell they were a bit,
Mm.
like okay, what's he gonna get into? Why not get into it? But funny enough, I mean, I got full right to play soccer, which I turned down. I got full right to play soccer in university, which I turned down. But when it was time to move to college, I had to sit down with myself and I was like, you can't do none of these things. You can't have your parents stressed about you all the way from Nigeria. So you have to, like I told my friend, I'm like, look, if you see that I'm losing it, just call me and put me in my
Pull me
place
back in.
because
Mm.
I don't want to be those kids that go to college and lose it all and just drink too much
Mm.
and all those things. So that's kind of how the, my mindset going into
Shout
college.
out friends that hold you
Oh
accountable for
yeah,
real.
for
Mm,
sure.
mm,
Nah, he would tell me how it is,
mm.
plain simple, no filter. Hurt my feelings too, and it's kind of like
Mm.
how you need real friends to be. So,
Yeah.
So you have people around you keeping you accountable. You assimilated, nicely. Um, what were your thoughts about staying in America post college? Were you good? Were you always thinking, okay, this is home now, or were you longing to go back home?
so while I was in America, I feel like anyone who knew me knew I didn't like being in America. I was one of those
Mm.
Nigerians that never wanted to live in America. I was like, I don't like this. So when I was close to graduation, I was like, okay, I want to stay because I started my clothing brand like this year. So I was like, okay, I want to stay 1 year, or 1 to 5 years to grow my clothing brand and move back to Nigeria. So that was kind of
Mm-hmm.
what I was planning on doing. And so um,
Why no America?
I don't like America. Well, I was it was just not for me. I didn't like the for me, in Nigeria, the only thing that matters in Nigeria is money. And for me, I've always like I want to be successful financially, and I want
Mm-hmm.
to be in a situation where I don't have to worry about the color of my skin everywhere I go to. Like no matter how successful you
Fair.
are as a black person in America, you'll never be viewed equal to a white person. So
Because you're black, yeah.
yeah, so I just never want like dealing with that. And also,
Mm.
I'm very big on I want to help figure out how to fix the problems in Nigeria. So
Look at the person that we need in our country.
All of
Oh.
you should be taking notes.
uh,
All of you
Taking
should be
notes,
taking notes.
so
and I was also I was very big on like if there's a quote that I live by, which is I don't want by Obafemi Awolowo, I think, that it says I don't want the kids of my drivers to be the drivers of my kids. So it's kind of like I want to make impact,
okay.
and I have